Doom 2016 was not only a landmark game because it was f***ing awesome, it was a landmark game because it signalled an exciting alteration in Bethesda's review policy. Games reviewers were only given review code on the day of release, a controversial decision that Bethesda has since gone back on.
For a good year or so from 2016 to 2017, reviewers only got access to review codes for Bethesda games on the day of release. It was an obviously controversial policy from Bethesda, as it meant reviews didn't arrive until a matter of days after the game went on sale, and millions of people had already put their money down. But over the past year, Bethesda seems to have quietly backtracked on that policy. Review codes were given out nice and early for the likes of The Evil Within 2 and Wolfenstein 2, both games which came out in the last 12 months. Bethesda hasn't made any big announcements on this, but clearly its policy internally has changed, right? VG247 asked Bethesda marketing boss Pete Hines what the deal is this week, and here's what he said, quote, "We're constantly iterating and re-evaluating. It just didn't make sense. We did it the first time because there was a big thing about transparency and companies needing to be transparent. Then it ended up being the focal point, and honestly, we were tired of reading reviews with the first paragraph spent more time talking about our review policy than the game. So we decided we're not going to keep drawing attention to it. We'll send out copies and maybe people will start talking about the game instead of talking about policies." So we did.
But at the same time, that doesn't mean that Bethesda will be handing out review code early for all its games from now on. Quote, "I think we're going to continue to evaluate what makes the most sense. In the case of The Elder Scrolls Online, we don't have a choice. Fallout 76 is the same way. It's a server. The game is either up or it's not. We will continue to figure out what makes the most sense." If I understand this right, what he's saying is the only reason they announced that they were doing this new thing of just giving the game out on day one to reviews, the only reason they announced that was because transparency was a big issue in gaming at the time in 2016, and they wanted to make sure they were transparent. So they made that announcement and everyone talked about that instead of the games, so that's why they kind of did a U-turn and went, well, we want them to talk about the games, so let's just give the games out early. This was never a good decision, and I can't think of any benefit. They tried selling it at the time, I remember, as saying, we want the journalists to experience it at the same time as you guys, the gamers, and it was almost like it was subtly pitting the community against the games journalists and trying to put like a bit of a divide there. Almost like it's them saying, it's not fair that the journalists get to play the game before you guys, is it? Even though it is massively beneficial that a group of people get to play it and review it and criticize it and tear it apart before you get a chance to buy it, because it protects you as someone who's going to buy the game.
So holding review codes back until day one or launch day is very controversial. It's very unusual for the industry. It's generally accepted that reviewers will get codes a week, maybe even two before the game launches, to give them enough time to play the game, to review it properly, so that day one customers can go in knowing what the game's like before they even buy it. But they didn't come out and actually say exactly why they were doing this, and the implication was around the time is that if reviews are negative leading up to the launch, that will lead to less sales. So they want to avoid people not buying the game because they've read the reviews early and saw that the game is pants. It's all great that they've decided to backtrack on this review policy because it was anti-consumer. It really was. So fair play to them. They've backtracked. We don't know why they've backtracked. We don't know why they did in the first place, but it's all right now, I guess.
In other Bethesda news, the company's legal representatives, Voris, sent a letter to a guy threatening him with legal action for trying to sell his sealed copy of The Evil Within 2 on the Amazon Marketplace. The company took issue with Ryan Hupp from Philadelphia listing the game as new, which it turns out you're really not allowed to do if you're not an authorized reseller. Hupp had bought the game but never unwrapped it. Well, Eurogamer spoke to Big Pete Hines about this after the story emerged on Polygon a few days ago. Here's what he said, quote, "We are not trying to stop anybody selling a used game. We would never try and stop anybody from selling a used game." He says this a lot. That's the one time I've put that in there, but he did say that a lot. They're not trying to stop anybody from selling a used game.
Not.
Pete Hines goes on, he's not trying to sell a second-hand game, he's trying to sell a new game. He was listing the product as if it was new. All we're saying is, if it's a previously owned product, you have to sell it as a previously owned product. You cannot represent it's new because we have no way to verify what you're selling actually is new. You could have opened it up, played it for 5 hours, taken whatever inserts or stuff was in there, put it back in shrink wrap and said, hey, this is new. It's not new. You owned it, you bought it, so just list it as a used title. That's it. That's the end of the argument. Hines repeated several times that the company isn't trying to stop people from selling used games.
That's the end of the argument. There's no way to deal with any sort of converse ever. That's it. That's the end of the argument. Yeah. I've said what I've said, and no more discussion. He
seems stressed, I'll be honest. He's at QuakeCon. He's doing a lot of interviews. He's probably hot, and he's in his shirt, and he's like, God, we're not selling used games. All right, we're not trying to stop people selling used games.
And on the back of,
he sounds stressed.
Yeah, on the back of having praising Bethesda for the pro-consumer move. This is a shot in the foot. It really is. This is not the way to define the term new. Let's argue over the term new, and then just throw a threat of legal action at someone because he thinks that something's new, whereas it's not new. It sounds like a lot of BS to me, because they really can't be serious, right? Because for them to do this to this one guy, they've got to do it to everyone else on the Amazon Marketplace, eBay, and everywhere else with selling new games, which are technically still new because they're in their shrink wrap, but they can't verify that. However, Amazon itself has a warranty, so if you buy something and it's not in the condition that it's been sold, then there's a fallback there. So what are they really arguing over? It's just
it could have just been an email, couldn't it? They could have just sent him an email and gone, hey, listen, mate, do you mind just selling it as used? Instead of we're going to take it to court unless you've... It's a definite overreaction, but and that makes it difficult to have any normal conversation about whether they're right or not, because they just seem just way too heavy-handed.
And the collectible card game Elder Scrolls Legend, which has been on PC for more than a year, will only launch on consoles that support crossplay with PC and mobile versions of the game. Bethesda had previously announced that the game would come to Nintendo Switch, Xbox and PS4, but speaking to Game Informer, Pete Hines again said the game will only come to consoles that support full crossplay, and that the issue was non-negotiable. He didn't mention PS4 by name, but when Game Informer asked if it would come out on Sony's consoles if its stance on crossplay remains reluctant, he said this, quote, "We continue to talk to all our platform partners, but those terms are essentially non-negotiable. We can't be talking about one version of Legends where you take your progress with you and another version where you stay within that ecosystem or it's walled off from everything else. That is counter to what the game has been about." Hines insisted he's not talking to anyone in particular, but says Bethesda's stance is 100% clear to everyone they're talking about. He says the way the game works on Apple, Google, Steam and Bethesda.net means that players can take the things they buy from one platform to the next. It doesn't matter what platform you play on, you play against everyone else who is playing at that moment. It's a collectible card game. It doesn't matter about the performance or keyboard and mouse advantage.
I can't see it being any clearer than this, really, because it's a collectible card game. It does not matter where you play it at all. No one's getting advantage. There's no real difference on what platform you're playing it in terms of how you're going to be performing game. And Sony's excuse or their reasoning for this all along has been that they can't control who you're playing with. Well, everyone else clearly doesn't seem to have a problem, including the people making this game, and they're saying we're on all of these other platforms, not just Xbox and PC and whatever. They're on mobile. They're everywhere, man. And they're saying that we're going to have a nice big party with everyone, and if Sony doesn't want to come in, that's fine. It's not happening. They're using the words non-negotiable. I mean, this could be like a landmark thing, and it could sway Sony to finally give in. It could even be an anomaly, and Sony will go, yeah, all right, fine. For this game, we'll let it happen. One thing's for sure, Legends is not going on the fucking PlayStation unless Sony changes its mind.
Yeah, and if they do change their mind just on this game, then it sets a precedent for all other games in future who want a crossplay on Sony and other platform. All we've got to say is either you let us on or we don't release on your platform.
Yeah, so that was a trio of very Pete Hines heavy news stories for you there. Let us know what you thought about them down in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. There should be another one right there if you want to watch that, and a link to Patreon if you want to support the channel. Thanks for watching. See you next time.